Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and I am greeting you from lovely Escazú, Costa Rica, where it is Sunday, the 22nd of September in the year 2024. And we are in a special day. As I mentioned last week on the podcast, this is a large astrological day. So the first thing is that everybody knows is that it's the equinox. And if you're in the northern hemisphere, it's the fall equinox, the autumn equinox. And if you're in the southern hemisphere, it is the spring equinox. So that's a lovely thing. That's the beginning of a new season. And also the sun enters Libra. So the cardinal signs follow the cardinal seasons. If there's a fall equinox, it's Libra season in the northern hemisphere. If it's the spring equinox in the southern hemisphere, it's still Libra season. But in September, we start Libra season. And that started 8:44 a.m. today in the Eastern time zone. So that's one component of today, okay? Then we have, right before the sun entered Libra, it was obviously still in Virgo. So it was talking to Pluto at 2:12 a.m. Eastern time. And this is the last smooth trine that the sun will have to Pluto from Virgo to Capricorn while Pluto is still in Capricorn. Okay, this is it. This is the last time the sun is in Virgo making a trine to Pluto in Capricorn in our lifetime. Because once we get past this, the sun is in Libra, it will make a square to Pluto, and then there's Scorpio, and I don't know that the sun will make a sextile until it's really Sagittarius, Aquarius, okay? So there is this last hurrah for the sun trining Pluto in Capricorn, okay? I mentioned this on Instagram last night, and, you know, it's the truth. It's the last time in our lifetime that we're going to have this aspect, and it's the last one in 16 years. So 16 years of having this experience of Pluto and Capricorn, and this is the last time the sun will throw this kind of a kiss at Pluto. So this is a moment, okay? It's a moment. It's a moment of recognizing and appreciating where we've been in the last 16 years. And, you know, it's really something profound because there's ups and downs, obviously, with all the aspects everywhere. There's always an up and a down. You know, it could be a void moon and you're like, I can't initiate my job search, for example. But also you can get a lot of other things done, other business as usual things done on a void moon. So everything has got an up and a down and a dark and a light. And I've said this 1,000 times, right? So, you know, this is the last moments of Pluto and Capricorn. We've got less than 2 months. So we're in the Pluto into Aquarius countdown, right? Less than 2 months because it goes in on November 19th. And today is the 22nd of September. And I'm excited. I'm excited. And the sun making this trine is reminding us of some of the good things that happened, some of the things that we used that were growth experiences, that were profound experiences. And the sun is saying, so long, Pluto, from Virgo. Okay, from Virgo, because there's going to be other trines and sextiles and aspects and everything else from the sun to Pluto once we're in Aquarius as well. And we've already experienced a lot of those this year. So this is a moment. And we are experiencing the last set of eclipses with Pluto and Capricorn. No more eclipses with Pluto and Capricorn. And I think after what people have been through in the last 5 years, I really think that everybody's probably, whether consciously or not, ready to say goodbye to Pluto and Capricorn. You know? And so we should pay attention to the fact that after the eclipses, once we get to October 11th, which is Friday, October 11th this year, Pluto will go direct that day. And it's almost like, okay, there you go. We're going direct. Pluto's going direct. That's it. It's still retrograde. It's still going backwards until October 11th. So we have a number of weeks left in this retrograde motion. It's still a bunch of weeks, and it's not tomorrow. Pluto's not leaving, the retrograde yet. So we are really still in that backwards motion. And once it goes direct, there's going to be a huge shift. This is going to be a huge shift forward. And it's when Pluto goes into that forward motion that once it starts to pick up speed, then it's really headed towards Aquarius for once and for all. So exciting, spooky, intense, powerful, dramatic. And speaking of drama, so Venus is in Libra. And that's where she is right now anyway. In a couple of hours, she won't be. She is making her last square to Pluto in Capricorn from Libra. So Venus is in Libra, making her last square to Pluto in Capricorn. That was exact at 5:15 p.m. today, Eastern Time. And then she's going into Scorpio at 10:36 p.m. Eastern Time. So she's squaring Pluto and then going into the sign ruled by Pluto. And she'll always go into Scorpio once a year, right? So she'll always be in Pluto's sign. Pluto, no matter where it still rules Scorpio. So this is a very dramatic, this is a bit of a day, okay, astrologically. And so these energies stay with us a little bit and we move forward into the week, which kind of casts these off. And so this week, Mercury, he's the busy guy, okay? So Mercury is in Virgo right now, and he is going to be in the position that Venus was in not so long ago, where the sun has been in these last days. Meaning, as he winds down his tour of his own sign, he's trining Uranus, he's opposing Neptune, and then trining Pluto. So this is what the Virgo planets, as the inner planets, as they move through Virgo, this is what they're doing right now at the end of Virgo, because the outer planets are all at the end of where they are, all the signs. They're in the last degrees, the last 5 or so degrees, and sometimes the last degree of the sign they're visiting. And so with Uranus and Taurus, Mercury is going to trine Uranus and Taurus on Tuesday the 24th at 1:27 p.m. And if you're like me and you have a Mercury trine Uranus, this is a recurrence. This is something relatively good. It's a smooth relationship between Mercury and Uranus. So Mercury in Virgo is lovely because it's in its own place and it loves being there, but the experience of trining Uranus, may jazz it a little bit, but we can be very clever. We can use it to be smart. We can use it to be creative. We can use it to do some, emotional homework is a good thing. Something very practical as well, because it's in earth signs and doing some practical things. Maybe you're finishing up your taxes for the later deadline. Maybe you are doing some other paperwork. Maybe you're taking on some practical work. This is a good time to do some good practical stuff while Mercury is moving through the end of Virgo. Mercury then opposes Neptune on Wednesday the 25th, which makes things a little more colorful and intuitive and maybe a little psychic, and just pay attention. Now, Mercury is the planet of communication. It's the planet of communication, but when it touches the outer planets, our antennas go up. We get intuitive, we get more clever, we get more sensitive, we receive information that is helpful. These are mostly smooth aspects. I mean, Mercury opposite Neptune, that one can be a little tricky. It's good to do some meditation under that aspect. It's great for meditation. It's great for receiving guidance, spiritual guidance. And it is good for anything, any intuitive psychic work, any healing work you have to do, journaling, anything. It's really good. Mercury with the outer planets really helps us dig up maybe some old emotions, maybe some old belief patterns, thought patterns that no longer serve us. And they're doing this primarily in smooth aspects. Like I said, the Mercury opposite Neptune can be greatly intuitive, very beneficial, but it is a little tricky. We have to be certain that whoever we're dealing with is telling us the truth, that we're receiving the truth in whatever we get, and that we are careful in our communications with people, that other people don't perceive what we're telling them as an untruth by some chance. Mercury then trines Pluto 12:14 a.m. on Thursday the 26th. That's Eastern time. So they are all these outer planets, one right after another, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We're receiving this onslaught of mercurial energy. This can be really deeply profound. This can really help us. It's two trines, okay? Those are the smooth aspects. That's when we might find solutions to things that we've been worried about and things that have been puzzling us for a while. This is good to unravel and get some solutions. It's also, like I said, get guidance from spirit, from intuition. It's a great time for that. And then Mercury will enter Libra 4:09 a.m. on Thursday the 26th. That's Eastern time. And Mercury will then start its new journey in the sign of Libra, which is where the sun is now. And so we are moving into a more intellectual, artistic, creative time with all that Libra energy, okay? All my Libras, all my Libras here. I have one friend who's a Libra architect. I have one friend who is a Libra moon architect. And it's so incredible. And their sense of design is an amazing thing. They're just what good design is, what not good design is, and they make a living doing this. Their perceptions. And it's interesting. Libra, we're having the next eclipse in Libra. So as we enter Libra season, of course, the sun is in Libra, and then the moon will be in Libra on October 2nd when we have the eclipse. Now, the interesting thing with Libra is, you see it as the sign of partnership. It is the seventh house. It rules the seventh house in astrology. Generally, the seventh house, not my house, seventh house, maybe not your seventh house, but generally speaking, Libra is the sign. It is the seventh sign. So it rules that partnership house, the one-to-one, the person sitting across the table from you. But, it is ruled by Venus. And it's an interesting dynamic, Libra, because Libra is not something like it. I don't see them as hopeless romantics. They're not. That's Pisces. I don't see them. Most of the Libras I know are not hopeless romantics. They have incredible skills of discernment when it comes to things like design and creativity. They have this sense of beauty, which is all about Venus, And like my astrology teacher used to say in these last moments of Venus and Libra for this year, he used to say Venus in Libra, Venus in Taurus is the diamond in the mine, in the earth. Venus in Libra is the diamond in the window at Tiffany's. Okay, so this is what we experience when we experience Libra, the perfection, the beauty, the style, the awe of the creativity of it. Diamonds are beautiful, obviously, but they all jewels. I mean, when you start looking at emeralds and sapphires too, they're beautiful, but they're cut. And it's the way they're cut that there's something incredible about them. I once was friends with, I have lots of jeweler friends that I've had in my life. And one jeweler friend used to deal with diamonds and precious stones. And he showed us once a yellow diamond. And I've never seen, the yellow diamond sparkle. The sparkle in the yellow diamond. It was just exquisite. And then you know why people fall in love with these things and they collect jewelry and they want to have these things in their lives. It was just, I've never seen anything just glisten like that before. And, diamonds are probably overpriced, but I don't know how much that diamond was, but, and then we start getting into the money aspect of Venus, right? So, and now we are in Libra season. And the sun, as long as it stays in Libra, it will be ruled by Venus, no matter where she is. And they're in the same sign for just today until tonight when Venus goes into Scorpio. And the experience is that Venus, okay, the sun is now ruled, and Mercury later this week will be ruled by a Venus that is not in her favorite place. And she's in her detriment. So it's kind of a funny thing. This happens all the time. It happens all the time that we're in Libra season and the Venus placement is in Scorpio. Sometimes it's Virgo. She's not in love with Virgo either, but she has a rough time of it in Scorpio. And it's not because like Scorpio has a bad reputation. It's just because Venus belongs in Taurus. She belongs in Taurus. The opposite sign is Scorpio. She rules Taurus. She's in her detriment in Scorpio. Now, if you have Venus in Scorpio, that doesn't mean, oh no, I'm never going to have a relationship. I know people with Venus in Scorpio that were married to their soulmate and had children and had beautiful relationships. Beautiful. And it was fine. And it's not necessarily like that, but they are dealing with the darker goddess, the darker quality of the goddess. Okay. And it's an interesting dynamic because Libra wants to be happy and beautiful and in balance. In balance. Libra wants to be in balance. And now we are going to this eclipse where the South Node is in Libra. And the eclipse is going to be close to the South Node. And so what does that tell us? That tells us, first of all, that it's time to release something. Because we might have a very tight grip, because that's what the South Node does. It wants some sort of gratification that is going to satisfy us, but the South Node is insatiable. So really, we're not going to receive so much gratification. We have to go in the direction of the North Node, even when there's a cluster of planets at the South Node, even though it will be Sun, Moon, and Mercury at the South Node. And so what we have to do is just sort of accept things. Maybe we're not going to get the balance that we seek. Maybe we're going to feel like something's unfair. Maybe we're going to have to release our sense of justice or balance or fairness in some way and just take care of ourselves. Okay? This one mentor I follow always says, for me, for you, for us, together we rise. And I think that's a good thing to keep in mind during this. For me, for you, for us. Okay, so it's for me, because that's the Aries part. For you, that's the Libra part. For us, that's both. And it's the balance. It's so that you and I both win. Okay, you've got to take care of you first before you can take care of someone else. And that's just common sense, right? That's common knowledge. That doesn't even have to be astrological. That's common knowledge. You have to take care of yourself first. You can't go to work if you're sick in bed, right? But this Libra eclipse that we're having on October 2nd will give us more insight into that. Eclipses also do bring things that are completely different. A twist of something happens and it changes the course of your life or your destiny. Most of the time, mostly something is happening at that eclipse that is changing things for you or for your loved ones around you. And there's probably an event that dates back to last year, because last year there was a Libra eclipse also. And this is the last Libra eclipse in that Libra Aries axis, because now we're starting to move into the Virgo Pisces axis. Okay, so this is important. I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised by the Virgo Pisces eclipse that we had in these last days. I was pleasantly surprised because, remember, I was talking about how it was with Neptune. And it's, eclipses are something that we cannot say precisely what's going to happen. We can see where things are going and how things may bubble to the surface because of where we're at in our lives and where we've been in these last few weeks. But this was a pleasant surprise. It was so quiet. And, a Neptune eclipse can be just as erratic because it's an outer planet as any other time, as a Pluto eclipse, a Uranus eclipse, whatever. But this was a surprise to me. And eclipses, like I said, we can't always predict what's going to happen. They are wild cards. I've said this before here. But this was one. I remember the evening came, I taught my class, and the evening came, and I had my dinner, and I was out on the patio, and the cat was with me. Gatamarina was outside on the patio with me. She wanted to go out because she was sitting in the house the whole time I was teaching. So it was a beautiful night, and the crickets were chirping, and the frogs were singing, and it was peaceful, and it was just this wonderful, peaceful energy. I couldn't believe it. But this is the best of Neptune, This is the best of Neptune in Pisces. When you can find a sense of that level of peace. My friend Claudia called me the next day and she said to me, that really hit me. And I expected her to tell me this story and drama and what was it? And I said, really? Well, how? And she said, I never felt so incredibly at ease, at peace. I said, you felt deep peace. She said, yes, it was deep peace. And I felt deep peace too. This is the last thing I expect from eclipses is deep peace, okay? It's not deep peace usually, it's deep chaos. And I just watched it get deeply peaceful over those hours. And I talked about it on Instagram the next day because I was pleasantly surprised. And it was just beautiful. And this exquisite energy of just like getting quiet and being present. And this was so satisfying that it was, and that was a North Node eclipse. So there you go. It was this satisfying experience of deeply just appreciating being present. And I, went to sleep that night without any kerfuffle. Any kerfuffle. Now, that does not mean that the energies present weren't stirred up some way, somehow, because we've got a lot of stirred up energies now because Pluto's at the end of Capricorn and we are in eclipse season and Mars is gonna eventually go retrograde, not so distant future. And so there's a lot going on. My cat, however, she was fine that night, but I guess it was Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night. She was crying in the middle of the night. And so I pendulumed for her birthday. I believe her birthday was the 18th of September, which is the day after the eclipse. And so I wanted to see if she was affected by it. And I was keeping an eye on her to make sure that she didn't get into a fight or anything happen. But what happened was these nocturnal wails. And she sounded upset. But like, my friend Claudia was saying to me, animals feel things. Animals definitely feel these energies just like we do. And for them, like we can call a friend and talk. We can go to a therapist. We can go to a healer. You could go to your astrologer. You can listen to the reasons why on my podcast, right? But cats, dogs, they're going to, use their vocal cords to express what's going on. And she was definitely, I wouldn't say she was not in pain. She was fine all day. It was just she was left alone. Like, I go to sleep and they're kind of nocturnal. So she spends some time sleeping with me and then sometimes up walking around the house. And that's when she started to get vocal. I gave her a little bit of her cat CBD oil and that seemed to mellow her out last night anyway. So I think tonight we'll get some more of that. And I left a light on for her. So there was definitely a stirring of energy. All that to say, there was definitely a stirring of energy. It wasn't like we were all in deep peace, right? I was in deep peace. I was surprised. And then my friend was in deep peace. So it's a very interesting energetic experience when we watch our animals react to this. And so that was the experience for my cat. Anyway, I would love to hear your eclipse story. So if you have an eclipse story, or maybe you were just like, nah, nothing to tell. Maybe that was deep peace and you didn't recognize it. So if you want to send me your experiences, then certainly write to me, Deb at debmcbride.com or info@thegoldenastrologer.com. There is also something that we study in astrology known as the prenatal eclipse. And prenatal eclipses are good things to look at what was going on in the world at the time, to look at how they show up in light of your own astrological chart. Obviously, they occur before your astrological chart, but there is some tie-in from the eclipse to your own experience of your life and what your family was going through as they expected you. Because remember, eclipses come every 6 months. So somewhere in your mother's pregnancy, there was an eclipse. These are good things to look at. And so an interesting little eclipse thing happened to me the other day. I was in the supermarket. I've had some supermarket experiences here lately. Yesterday, I posted what I found yesterday in a very well-known supermarket in the world that I was in here in Escazú. And it was this little robot preparing for Christmas. And I'm like, please, already. Okay. But Thursday, I was in the supermarket, my regular supermarket, Automercado. And I always make a joke, Automercado plays real supermarket music. They're always playing something that sounds, it's like, from when I was a kid and I remember supermarket music. So the other day they're playing supermarket music and I'm getting what I need. And all of a sudden I stop and I said, wait a minute, I know this song. And it wasn't a typical supermarket music song. However, it was an old song. It was The Boxer by Simon and Garfunkel. And it was in Muzak form, okay? And I always loved that song, especially when I was very young. And I stood there and I said, wait, there's something about this. And I realized that, first of all, you don't always recognize the song when you're playing in Muzak, when you hear Muzak, right? And so when I recognized it, what I realized in that moment, and this is very Libra, is that the art of the song, Paul Simon did such a beautiful job of writing that song. It's such a beautiful melody that it still was shining through the music. The beauty of the song was still there and was not destroyed by, sort of this fluffy supermarket style, right? And so I was impressed and I said, wow, that's the art of a Libra. Paul Simon's a Libra. And he wrote that song so many years ago. And the Muzak did not take away from the art and the beauty of that melody and that song. So, of course, I had to come home and I said, I haven't heard that in a while. I'm going to listen to it. And then I looked at his chart. And wouldn't you know, his prenatal eclipse was at 20-something Virgo. And so it was a solar eclipse in the sign of Virgo at about 27 degrees. And it was on Neptune. So there was a Neptune eclipse in Virgo, except it was at the North Node. And he's born with the North Node Neptune conjunction in Virgo in his first house. And so this was fascinating to me because that same North Node eclipse occurred in 1941. And it was with Neptune. This time it was in opposition, but this time it was with Neptune. And I found that to be absolutely interesting and this is sort of what we call a recurrence. It wasn't a specific recurrence, but this man probably had some sort of recollection and reverberation to something in his life or in the part of his early life. And, when I look at these prenatal eclipses, I look at them and I think, it's almost like the universe is patting you on the head saying, okay, little person, you're going to go out and you're going to become this. And you're going to go into that world and you're going to become this. So it's for him with North Node Neptune in Virgo in the first house. Well, that's a musician, my goodness. And a very, very successful, famous, well-known, prolific, highly respected musician. And so I feel like he was sort of pat on the head by spirit and said, okay, go do it. Go make that music. And that generation, so I did a music talk with astrology many years ago. And what I found when I did the research of all these different artists, especially the ones born at that time, there was Neptune in the nodes, always Neptune in the nodes, even like the South Node in another point. And, if someone was born later later on, and Neptune was definitely involved with the nodes. It could have been crossing the nodes, it could have been like a square to both nodes, it could have been at the south node. It was usually involved with the nodes somewhere. And so people really had an experience of the artistry of the people born of that time. I mean, as we know, as those people came of age. So I found it fascinating that I should happen upon that music at the time of the eclipse, and that it related back to his astrological chart. So this is the importance of looking at a prenatal eclipse, and you never know who's going to turn up in your eclipse. So this is something I thought was profound, because he probably resonated in his life somehow last week with perhaps something that happened, when he was very young. Or perhaps more about his journey and his lifelong purpose fulfilled as this musician, Truly a Libra Virgo experience, and in looking at his chart and then relating it back to the eclipses we're having now and the eclipse in 1941. 1941, the world was in a lot of turmoil, and I think the world's always in some turmoil. There's always a backdrop of turmoil. I wanted to say that, of course I found some sort of deep peace in this moment, but this was a moment, okay? Because God knows every one of us has something going on. And I wonder what it was like back then, if anybody had some sort of moment of deep peace when they tapped into a Neptune eclipse. I would hope that people found some sort of peace while they prayed for the world and the situations to get better at that point in time. I thank you for listening. Have a beautiful mercurial week. This is the in-between week of the eclipse corridor. This is not an eclipse week, thankfully, because we need a breath of air before we go into another eclipse. I often think that the energies shift and change between eclipses. Like I said, it was very peaceful, the last one. I was surprised. I don't know what this next one's going to feel like, but we'll certainly get a taste of that in the coming days. Hopefully Mercury will give us some more information as it touches the outer planets. And I thank you for always being here present for me. I wish you a beautiful week ahead. Thank you again. Gratitude to all for listening, and I will see you next week. Have a beautiful week.